Well, hello guys, and welcome back. In this episode, we're taking a look at a new show. That hasn't happened in a while. But yeah, we're looking at Genlock Season 1, Episode 1, The Pilot. If you don't know, this is made by Rooster Teeth, and this is their newest show that they've been hyping up to here in high heaven, right? It's been an interesting hype cycle, and eventually I was gonna watch it no matter what, just because of the hype cycle. But eventually it wore me down to a point where I was like, let's actually look at this. Let's take a review at this. This isn't my normal shtick, I'll admit. Usually I do the big budget cartoon shows. But I thought this would be interesting. Just kind of switch it up. Will we do the entire show? Will we just do the first episode or two? Who knows? We'll figure it out. Right now, this is just the first episode. I know they released the first two. We're just looking at the first one. We'll look at the second one later on. Sooner rather than later, of course. But before we get into it, there's three things I want to establish. The first one is, okay, so this is made by Rooster Teeth. And I am a fan, of course. I am biased towards them. I've been a fan of Rooster Teeth for, I want to say 7, maybe 8 years at this point. But more Achievement Hunter. I'm a big Achievement Hunter fan. They're my main go-to for, I want to say 6. It's like a year or two less than that, Rooster Teeth. But yeah, they're an internet production company. They do all sorts of things. They've done other shows like RWBY, Camp, Red vs. Blue. Which, also on top of that, even though I am a fan, I might as well say I have never watched any of those shows. I'm not a fan of RWBY, even though I've always been interested in it. I've never seen Camp or Red vs. I've seen a few Red vs. Blue. It's been a long time though. Never seen Laser Team. Just I'm a casual. What can I say? Second thing is this is an internet show, right? This is made by Rooster Teeth, which is an internet company, and it's made specifically for the internet. This isn't like me attacking some big box production company that will never even know I exist. Theoretically, someone on a smaller scale could see this, which scares the shit out of me. But yeah, because I treat shows differently, right? Like, I will treat a cartoon made by, like, a big budget, like the other stuff we review, like Rick and Morty and Steven, differently than I would say an anime, like, insert example here, which I will then also treat differently from something like this, a show made for the internet, because I know there are different productions, there's different ways to do this. Like, I've been considering doing a Super Science Friends for years now. Probably years, I don't know. Just because, hey, it's interesting, but I've always stopped myself because it's an internet show. They work completely differently. But Rooster Teeth is marketing this as like their big budget show, their big AAA thing to compete with all the other stuff, which, I mean, you could argue they did the same thing for the previous shows I've mentioned. But this one feels grander than those, especially because they've got like Michael B. Jordan and Dakota Fanning and all that, David Tennant. So it feels grander, and as such, I want to treat it as such. But there is that bias there that I want to try to get over. But I am probably subconsciously going to treat it differently than I am any of the other things I just mentioned. And the last thing is, this is heavily inspired by like mecha anime. And personally, mecha anime is just not my style. I'll admit I haven't seen that many. Like, I've maybe seen like probably a little over like half a dozen. The only ones I can think of off the top of my head are Lagrange and Dimedollar. That's it. Like, I've never seen Gundam or I've never seen Evangelion, even though from what I've been told, Evangelion isn't even a mecha anime, and that Ratatouille has more of a claim to mecha anime than Evangelion has. I don't even know what to do with that information, honestly. God, this is why I hate anime fans. I'm still going to give it a fair shake, because, again, I like Lagrange. I love Pacific Rim, which this kind of, just based on what little I've seen, it doesn't remind me of Pacific Rim, but Pacific Rim's kind of like my jumping off point to get interested in this. So yeah. And yeah, those are my biases. Some more may come up in the future, because there's not that much mech in this, but there will be in the future. But we start off in the future. It's 2065, and we're in New York. This is controlled by the Polity, which, okay, they're called the Polity, the enemy is called the Union, but I feel like somewhere else I've heard the exact opposite, where the Polity is evil and the Union is the good guys, but I can't think of where. I don't know. But we see, so our main character, played by Michael B. Jordan, and our support / female main character, played by Dakota Fanning. I do not remember any of their names. I'll figure that out as time goes on. I want to say Chase and Tempest? At least that's their call signs. Give me some time. If you've been around on the channel long enough, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to call them by their actors' names for the moment. The parents' place, and the mother and the sister, because they're not actually there. Like, they don't directly say it for a little bit, but they hint at it. It's kind of clever. We see there's this virtual reality. This is our opening shot. It's establishing, hey, this is how the world works. That holograms exist. That virtual reality exists. Right? I do the same thing with the sister singing, and then it cuts back, and she's actually not that great of a singer. That's funny. Okay. That works. And then we get the shot of them, like, eating dinner, but again, they're holograms, so they can't actually eat. And whenever we focus on the sister, the screen gets kind of like a purple tint on it. I'm assuming this is a stylistic thing to show virtual reality. It didn't take me a while to figure out, but it was kind of like, okay, why is it contrasting like this? And then sometimes you'll see the sister in frame, but it's just how people perceive the world. That's how I'm getting at it with virtual reality and whatnot. It works. After Michael B. Jordan and Dakota Fanning's characters leave, we see the news and something's going on. Of course, the irony that all days. There are some story conventions in here that I expect. There are some that I was like, okay, this is going to happen, but they subvert my expectations, and we'll get to that. But yeah, they're back at base, and we see our presumably supporting cast. The only one one of the guys is Gary Haddock. The other one's Mile Luna. I don't remember who voices the third one. And they make a Siege reference, which, okay. We're setting ourselves in the future. And I know there could be a game, Rainbow Six Siege 2089 or whatever in the future. But just the way they refer to Siege, it doesn't take me out of it, but it's kind of weird to see it here. I'd rather either have them do like something made up or poke fun at something like a Call of Duty postmodern warfare. I don't know. Siege is just too vague because I know what it is in our modern context, and it clearly only exists to fit into our modern context. There's a song at the very beginning, the You Only Live Once, Let the Good Times Roll, that we call back throughout the entire episode. Using a music cue to call back throughout the entire thing is clever, and I think it does work throughout this, because we're not having to remember much, we're only focusing on like 2 lines. But yeah, of course they're called out, and of course they admit they love each other and whatnot. So something bad's going to happen. It will play with our expectations, and we'll get to that in a minute. But they head out. We see she's a mech walker pilot, and he's a pilot. And they head out of... We don't get the name right now. Again, a lot of this, because this is our pilot, they don't really have time to explain things or say things, so we're just rushing straight into the action because you want to start off your pilot with a bang. Well, we started off slow, but that's just to kind of get us a feeling into the show. And now we're getting the actual battle. We're hot shots. We're flying in, right? It's contrasting itself, but it's also clever because it's establishing, hey, this is what the show's going to be. We're going to have some talking, but we're also going to have some mech action because we head into New York and... Yeah, the shots, there's a lot of detail here. It's very nicely animated. Again, this is where my bias shows through, that this is a internet show, that the shots do look nice. And even though I haven't commented on the art style, because I'm not a fan of RWBY, the art style while it looks nice, it's something I will have to get used to. The 3D modeling and all that, it looks good. It's foreign to me personally, so it's something I will adjust to. Hopefully by the end of the show, I'll be on board with it completely. But yeah, the city's being invaded by the Union, and while the Polity has these like mech walkers, the The Union has these spider things. It's giving us clear, distinct ships so that way we can tell each other apart. A lot of this is fight scene for the next, 10, 15 minutes, and I'm just going to kind of brush over it because while I could say that, they use a lot of good shots and reversals, the grounding is clear, we clearly know what's going on, it's much better if you actually see it. But we come in through the city, through the pilots and whatnot, but then for a moment, we focus on the people, because that's what this is all about. They're an army, they're trying to get the people out. So it's clever that they focus on the people, show it from their perspective, what's going down on the small scale, so that way we appreciate the larger scale when we get back to it. There's the smoke going around, and they say it's nanotech, but they never actually say, what it does, but instead they do the clever thing and show it. We see Central Park, that's what I was looking for, but we see how it's devastated, so they show without explaining that, hey, if this touches organic, it destroys organic. And they'll show it again later when a guy gets murdered. But right after we see the people, we cut back. We don't really focus on the mech walkers, more towards the end, but we're mostly focused on pilots. But and we see a whole squad go in, but instead we focus on just two. Our main character and Razzles, voiced by Lindsay Jones. I'm a huge Lindsay Jones fan. Not from RWBY or anything, but from Achievement Hunter. The most controversial thing I will say in this video is that Lindsay Jones is my favorite Achievement Hunter. Take that to the bank. But yeah, there's this giant mech walker, which just to give a sense of scale again, all the great city backgrounds. We see the Met Walker, it just destroys the Statue of Liberty, because of course it does. I will say with this battle, one of the things I really do like, and it shows how the animation is good, is that it's set during sunset. It's very easy to set it's not easy, but you get my point. To set an animation during midday, right? When lighting is very standard. But by setting it in sunset, you have to worry a lot more about shading and the more complexities of animation. And that's what they chose to do, which just makes the animation better. It shows that they can... It's a tour de force, you could say. It's showing off their talent, that they're able to set it at sunset. And of course, this mech walker just comes out of nowheres, and it's huge, and how did it get here? Because that's one of the things. Being a pilot, we don't have time to establish everything. We don't know what the polity is. We don't know what the Union of the Fourth... I think they call it the Union of the Fourth. Just basing off my guesses, it's I've been saying, it's Soviet Union versus America. It's a Civil War style thing. I guess, or maybe just Russia. I doubt it they're actually going to ever use that, because again, this is 40 years in the future. But that's my comparison, that's my grounding to reality that I'm using in my head, because the whole, your imagination will always be stronger than whatever the show creates. True fact. But yeah, that's just where I'm going for it. It kind of reminds me of, is it Modern Warfare 3 when they do the bust on the stock exchange? I haven't played the Modern Warfare games in a while. But yeah, that's kind of what this not reminds me of, because they're completely different tones, but it's the grounding I'm using to accept the scene easier. And we get a little bit more of the ground soldiers. We see how the nanobots work. Again, another person dies. We see that they have this hacking technology that is just for a setup for a scene later on in the episode. But the pilots have an ESD, which I think is basically just an EMP. I don't know enough about military stuff to actually tell you, the specifics, but based on what we see it do, yeah. But Razzles gets shut down, which... yeah, you got to take life somewhere. We see one mech pilot die and we see one aircraft die. And yeah, so after the pilot dies, they're taking losses, so an evacuation is ordered, right? Get as many people out of there as possible. They're basically surrendering New York. Yeah, we're not starting off on a high note here. We're not starting off at victory. If you want us to relate to the character stronger, if you want to make the setting stronger, you have to beat the protagonist down. And that's exactly what we're doing here. But yeah, we get some more of the fight. We focus on the mech while Michael B. Jordan's character is getting ready to... He goes back because he wants to make sure his family's safe. And he's able to launch the ESD, but he gets shot down in the process. But hey, he's able to save more people because of it. And yeah, this is where I was talking about subversion of expectation. Based on that scene earlier, where we started off with the family, it's just, based on every rule of storytelling, it's safe to assume one of them was going to die. I mean, I know we live in a post-women in refrigerators world, which I have to reread Women in Refrigerators. It's been a while. But you knew one of them was going to die. I will give them more credit that they killed Michael B. Jordan than they killed her. Just because it makes things more interesting and... yeah. Well, kill. Because here's the other thing, is there's kind of this disconnect here, because even though they kill him and it's like, oh no, is he dead? You know he's not, because they got Michael B. Jordan to come in and do it. It's this out of context thing, but you know he's not dead. But then as we cut back to her... and we see the fight go on, and as this is going on, it's like the sound goes underwater, and it kind of cuts out, and then the music starts doing its job. And yeah, the music, it's meant to pull on your heartstrings, and it more or less does it. Again, there's still always that disconnect, but it's trying, and yeah, it's okay. And then we cut out the music, just a shot on her. Again, now we go from Women in Refrigerators to a reverse Women in Refrigerators, even though they were always in the military, so you could argue that even though this is making her fight more, how much is this really changing things? I mean, yes, she's heartbroken, but you get where I'm coming from. And then we get 4 years later, which, yeah, that's the right way to do it. Again, rules of storytelling, that's exactly what I expected. A time skip after this. And yeah, she's changed a lot. A lot has more or less changed. And we get the new guy who's coming in from like R&D. They have an actual name, David Tennant. It's David Tennant, who's, you know, I'm not a fan of Doctor Who, but he's great. Between, well, Jessica Jones and he's Scrooge McDuck in DuckTales, isn't he? And I think he is. He's great, though. It's cool. Again, another big name that it's cool that they got here. But yeah, he's your quirky scientist type. And then as they go on a little tour, we see Madrina? I think that's her name. It's the only one I actually have written down. And she gives some cryptic bullshit about how, oh, you are the hope, you are the people's shield, but now you need a sword to fight back. Yeah, forced poetic bullshit. She's the only one I'm not sure about at this point. Again, give it some time, we'll probably see more of her, but her cryptic bullshit did not make a good first impression. And then we get a mission briefing about what's going to happen, and they say that, things have changed over the past 4 years, but they don't say much, but just based on the map, again, it's some showing and a little telling. But we know they've been able to push people back to the 88th parallel. There are some things they have to explain, like how they're losing territory every day. But you get more of an idea about what's actually going on in this world, and how a time skip is just they're still losing, right? Not much has changed, but hey, we've got Genlock, and Genlock's gonna change things. Yeah, for a mecha anime, this really hasn't established them. I mean, we'll get it here in a minute. But I have a feeling that the tone of this first episode, while we establish both dichotomies, the tone of future episodes is going to be a little different. I'm wondering if they're going to go more goofy or more serious. Based on this first one, they can go either way. But they're doing there's an underground railroad, and they're picking up civilians. Again, focusing on the civilians to get our grounding for the scene before we go into the mech combat, because enemy ambush. And yeah, it's not going well. To set up a good action scene keeps track of its geography, knowing where people are, knowing where everything's going, how people are moving and whatnot, making it clear. Unless, of course, you're Michael Bay, which... But yeah, this scene, because it's set in an open field, we can do overhead shots to show the different geography of the scene, which it's effective. And then she's given the you only live once... And then you hear Michael B. Jordan's voice come in, and it's let the good times roll, and then a mech shows up, and it's like, yep, he's not dead. I figured he wasn't dead, but hey, it's cool. The mechs are... I'm gonna be honest, they're not, just based on, we see his one, and then we see the other one, presumably piloted by the girl. We don't know much more than that, because they just go in, they kick some spider tank ass, and then they leave, once they get the people out. The mechs don't really look that special. They're very simplistic. Again, never seen Gundam, but that's what they remind me of. But based on the end credits, it looks like they're going to get more defined and more specific later on. So I am interested in seeing that. But yeah, of course, they go back to the base and it's like, what's going on? What were those? Again, because this is a pilot and it's more important with setting up the world and setting up potential conflict and getting you enticed to watch. They don't actually have any answers, even though I might as well say they released the first 2 episodes. As of recording this, I have only seen the first one. So yeah, they may answer more questions. I'm expecting them to answer more questions in the second episode, especially because they leave off this episode establishing that, hey, they're going to answer more questions. But yeah, we see Michael B. Jordan's character is still alive. He's still kicking. Which, yeah, it's what you expect. Of course, there is some twist going on because he holograms in. So whether he's now has his brain digitized or he may be in like a coma or something, something's going on, which it does nicely contrast. At the beginning of the episode, we cut in with him as a hologram, right? Him and her are holograms with the real people, and now we cut off at the end here where he is once again a hologram in this situation. It's referencing back to the beginning of the episode. It's connecting everything. It's circling itself together. It's clever. And then, yeah, it just singles them out before it ends. And that's where the episode ends. We're going to get more answers in the next one. We're going to see more of it. I'm assuming there's this entire 5-man band dynamic that I'm expecting to come in the next episode. So, sooner rather than later, anyways. And yeah, that's where we end. It's for a pilot. I've always said the point of a pilot is a promise. It's to promise you that the show has potential right, and that it's going to deliver on that potential. And for that job, I think it did its job. There are some questions that are left very vague, like what is the Union, right? There are some things that I am interested in, like the whole what's going on with Michael B. Jordan. I'm more interested in this show, admittedly, as a personal character study than I am like the cool mech action battle scenes. I mean, that's always nice icing on the cake, but I like the personal aspects of it. I'm interested to see where it's going to go from there, how the conflict's going to go. Again, based on the end credits, it looks like we're going to get like a 5-man band dynamic, which should be fun, hopefully. I mean, yeah, I definitely say give it a shot if you're interested in this style of show. Definitely if you're an anime fan, there's a lot here that reminds me of it, and yeah, it is interesting. Again, continuing our trend of Western anime. Taking what works from Western shows and taking what works from animes to make one great big old show. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.